Okay.
Countless number of Democrats think that this thing had problems too. We
Mr.
called for an
Jordan,
investigation, but you
Mr.
guys didn't want to do it. No investigation.
Mr. Jordan.
End of story. No, never
Mr.
mind the fact
Jordan.
that a third of the, well, when you ask me a question, I got to give an answer.
I didn't. I asked you a yes or no. I asked you a yes or no questions. Please, we're trying to bring this nation back together. Jim, geez.
And so the deal is, my question was very simple. I'm not asking you to make a statement that the election was not stolen, that Joe Biden won fair and square. And, one of the ways to promote healing is for you to say yes and to put that on your Twitter account so that all these people who bought into a lie will start hearing from some of the people that were pushing this. The answer is, the American people.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Joe Biden is going to be sworn in as president. He is President-elect Joe Biden.
That's not the question I asked. That is not the question I asked.
Yeah, our concern and why we raised objections was in several states, the rules were changed in unconstitutional fashion when the state legislatures did not change election law. You had Secretary of State, you had governors, you had Supreme Courts. In some cases, you had county clerks changing the election law. That's what we're pointing out. That's all we were pointing out.
I could just say one more final point. The real insurrection, if you want to go down that path, happened on November 4th at about 3:30 in the morning when all those vote dumps were dropped. That's when it happened. That was the overthrow. That was taking away the agency and the self-government of the American people. And if we allow it to stand, that's the real crisis here. And that's who should be disqualified from being the president. It's Joe Biden.
If it weren't for the president's incendiary rhetoric, there would not have been the trashing of the Capitol, our sacred shrine of democracy. He bears responsibility for that. It is an awful thing that happened. It is a historic black mark on the country, what happened. Now, were others similarly guilty in other riots and insurrections? Perhaps. But this was the first time where you had a direct connection between the President of the United States and the trashing of American democracy.
Welcome. We're live from the nation's capital. You're in the war room. It's Tuesday, the 12th of January, the year of our Lord 2021. Now, one of the top podcasts in the world with over 28 million downloads. John Fredericks Radio Network nationwide. We're on Dish Channel 219 on the satellite, Comcast Channel 113. Of course, the guys in Denver, Real America's Voice, the streaming service, and cable operator. I want to thank you. And distributed everywhere. I'm getting a distribution in a second. But we've got breaking news. Mitch McConnell, this is the New York Times, the August paper of record of our nation, reported Mitch McConnell reportedly believes Trump committed impeachable offenses and is pleased that House Democrats are moving forward with their second impeachment. I want to bring in Peter Navarro for a second. Here's why we did the sequence the way we did the sequence. This is signal, not noise. At the very beginning, that is the beginning of this process of both the 25th Amendment and the impeachment process, historic on a sitting president, but in communism and totalitarian rule, what Jim Jordan was going through is what's called a struggle session. A struggle session. Remember what they kept saying, this is how the healing process starts. This is how we become united. We need a healing process. Don't you agree, Mr. Jordan? Can't you say that it was that Joe Biden won fair and square? No. Let me be brutally frank. Trump, and let me repeat this, okay? So YouTube, you can take us down. Oops, we've already been banned for life. Trump won. You're going to have to embrace that. No, Joe Biden did not win fair and square. We have the evidence. We have the facts. And any time, any place, like Fresno State used to say, we'll go anywhere, anytime, any place and play you. Okay? You named the venue and we're there. We'll bring the receipts. And this is why it's very, very important for the Republican Party to understand tomorrow, however this debate, Nancy Pelosi's trying to gun deck and try to change the rules so it's not. President Trump's team must step up and must challenge, as he did today when he walked to Marine One, challenge that there was nothing wrong with his speech and it did not initiate violent insurrection. They must bring the facts. And they also as importantly or more importantly, must bring the facts on page 3 of the impeachment indictment, where it specifically lays out where he gave false and misleading hope and testimony to the American people, and particularly the rubes that are his followers. No, Chairman, this is not the way the healing. We told you and told you and told you. This is a wound that will not heal. And the way it would have healed is when the Democrats come forward and work together at the state level to go through the voter fraud, the ballot fraud, and the election fraud, and talk about the mail-in ballots. I'm not talking about Dominion or machines or servers on the moon or gun battles in, mythical gun battles in Frankfurt, right? Or Chinese. And hey, I'm Mr. Anti-CCP. I'm not saying China took that data and took it back to Beijing and reversed it. I'm talking about the basics, the nuts and bolts, the things that are found in Peter Navarro's 2 reports. His 2 reports lay out the math in the first, the Immaculate Deception, part 1. Part 2 is the Art of the Steal. Part 3, I think, is finishing up tonight or tomorrow for the impeachment. I want to bring Dr. Peter Navarro in. Dr. Navarro, are you with us?
Steve, studying when I was watching that Jim Jordan struggle session, as you put it, this is what a Chinese communist court would do, or a jailer. They bring somebody in. It's like, confess, submit, confess, submit. It's like they're demanding and shouting over Jim Jordan to make him say what you and I and the world does not believe.
Hang on, Dr. Navarro. You wrote the book back in 2006, The Coming China War. No. A struggle session, this is even worse. This is the Cultural Revolution. This is what we were saying in the spring was coming. This is You don't get into a courtroom. You don't get into a courtroom. You're in a struggle session. You're out there in the town square with the tent on and the placard around you. This is a struggle session. We're going to play it again on tomorrow's show. This is what a modern struggle session looks like. We need healing. We need to heal. And all you need to do, Jordan, is give me the words. Biden won fair and square. By the way, the agony will stop, the torture will stop, the humiliation will stop, the embarrassment will stop. It'll all go away. You'll be fine, and the healing will commence as soon as you say the magic. As soon as you say the magic phrase. As soon as you say the magic phrase.
Say the magic words. Here's the problem with all of this, Steve. We've got the receipts, the 2 reports that I did, Art of the Steal, Immaculate Deception, laid out in excruciating detail. Both the thin Biden margin of alleged victory juxtaposed against the huge number of potential illegal ballots. The only thing that's going to heal this country is to have an investigation as to the validity of those potentially illegal ballots. And Congress on January 6th used the riots as a shield to stop going in and having that investigation. Let's be very, very clear about that. We were on a path where we were going to get possibly a 10-day window where all of these battleground states could be looked at the request, mind you, of some of their state legislatures. And lo and behold, that did not happen. And now we got the struggle session, submit. And somehow they think that if we all kind of turn a blind eye to what looks like the Immaculate Deception, that somehow it's going to be kumbaya in this world. We're a 50-50 country right now, Steve. We're a 50-50 country. And what they are doing, what the social media oligarchs are doing, what the Democrats on Capitol Hill are doing, are dividing this country further. They will not conquer us, but they will divide us further. And I loved listening to your show this morning and learning what I already knew, which is to say that people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Congress as an institution across the aisle have approval ratings that are lower than the toilet. And somebody's got to get a grip up there on Capitol Hill, which is not too far from either you or I right now.
Hang on.
And these struggle sessions are not the way to go.
I want to make some. By the way, struggle sessions play into our hands. Jason Miller goes through the numbers today.
Anybody watches that, it's like, come on,
No.
it's Kafka. I think it's Kafka.
It's
You just
Kafka-esque.
think it's Mao Zedong. It started with Kafka.
Okay, but here's the beauty.
Went through the gulags at Mao.
Here's the beauty. The numbers are already coming. Even the Axios poll, what they're reporting is that the numbers are already in the somewhere between the low 40s and the mid 40s on people that think the Biden's illegitimate or illegal. They're playing their hands. I can do this all day long. Yep. Go ahead.
When I release this third report, there's going to be all doubt removed as to the need to investigate, because we go chapter and verse down every single subcategory of possible illegal votes and lay it all out with footnotes. And if you cannot, Steve, you cannot turn a blind eye to that. This is the republic. And instead of having a national discussion and investigation of what has happened, all we're getting is social media oligarchs trying to shut us up. That's not going to work.
Let me say something. We have never said one time in the show, we have not had a guest on here. I've not heard the President of the United States say this, and certainly not Dr. Peter Navarro. We're not saying you have to accept on the face of it the evidence. But what you have to do is provide a venue and have what's called in American democracy. You got to investigate and debate. We're an advocacy system. Go ahead, sir.
And Steve, I've been very careful about this. Every time I've talked about this, I've said potentially illegal votes, right? I've got the receipts in terms of the footnotes. It looks like they are potentially illegal. We damn well ought to look a little further if that's the case, because the amount of potentially illegal votes are like an ocean compared to the sand of the victory margin that Biden won by a grain of sand. I mean, it's crazy stuff. It's in Arizona, like it's 10,000 votes he wins by. There's over 100,000 potentially illegal votes. In Georgia, it's 12,000 votes. Victory margins, there's over 400,000. I mean, there's so many things that went wrong here, and they used legal means to get to an illegal end. They bent the rules. They broke the rules. That consent decree, Steve, that's the poster child. That's the canary in the coal mine. That's an illegal consent decree that led to a flood of absentee ballots that nobody looked at. Nobody looked at. That stuff just came in, and you don't know where those things came from. And you know what? They took steps to make sure we couldn't even check them. They separated the ballots from the envelopes, and it was like,
Dr. Navarro, I know you're here on your personal time. You don't have a lot of that. What time is this report going to come out? We got about 30 seconds. And how can people get it tonight when it comes out?
We'll revisit that in the morning, Steve, on your show, and let's see where we're at. I'm working feverishly on that, but doing it in my personal time, and there's only one of me here.
Okay, brother. Dr. Peter Navarro just finished his struggle session in War Room Pandemic. We'll see the report. We'll see the report.
Captain Kafka reporting to duty.
We'll see the report tomorrow at the beginning of impeachment day. Okay, Dr. Navarro, thank you very much. Something the communists ought to understand: thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Right? Dialectic materialism. Thesis: Trump won. Antithesis: Biden won. Synthesis: let's think it through. Okay, we're going to turn in a minute with the FBI and Jack Posobiec on War and Pandemic.
Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Control. And then secondly, if you could, at least Senator Schumer has talked about the possibility that some people might be put on the no-fly list. Of these 170 case subject files that you've already opened, can you tell us whether you've added any of those people to a no-fly list as a result of what happened?
So we're looking at all different avenues here. So my agents and analysts and all the other FBI personnel in my office and across the country are scrubbing video. We're talking to witnesses. We're talking to individuals that we arrest, and we're gathering that picture, that intelligence, if you will, to understand what happened on the 6th, that day, in the Capitol, outside the Capitol. We talked to all law enforcement partners, and it's not just the FBI doing this, it's all of our law enforcement partners as well that are working in conjunction with Acting U.S. Attorney Mike Sherwin's office and our local office here too as well. So we're sharing that intelligence amongst each other. We're putting into the intelligence cycle that the FBI has to try to ascertain the true picture of what happened that day. As for the no-fly list, we look at all tools and techniques that we possibly can use within the FBI, and that's something that we are actively looking at. To be clear, the brutality the American people watched with shock and disbelief on the 6th will not be tolerated by the FBI. The men and women of the FBI will leave no stone unturned in this investigation. Since these events, the FBI has worked hand in hand with the United States Attorney's Office and our law enforcement partners here in D.C. and across the country to arrest and charge multiple individuals who took part in the destruction. In 6 days, we have opened over 160 case files, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. The significance of this is not lost on us. This is a 24/7, full-bore, extensive operation into what happened that day. We cannot do our job without the help of the American people. Since our call for tips, videos, and pictures, we have received more than 100,000 pieces of digital media, which is absolutely fantastic. And we are scouring every one for investigative and intelligence leads. We continue to ask for more. If you have information, contact 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit photos and videos to fbi.gov/US Capitol, and that's Capitol with an O. I want to stress that the FBI has a long memory and a broad reach. Agents and our partners.
A long memory and a broad reach. So I want to bring Jack Posobiec in. By the way, the violence that was done up there by these by the marginalia that did it is absolutely, he's correct, unacceptable. But Jack, you got to help me out here. During the burn down of Portland and Seattle, and I think it was, I don't know, $2 billion in Portland, and we had Liz Ure on here asking for tiger teams of Justice Department, deputy Justice, DOJ guys, U.S. attorneys to flood the zone. That's what we kept saying, flood the zone with FBI, flood the zone with DOJ. Let's get these anarchists and revolutionaries and get back to law and order, because we are the law and order party, and the movement's a law and order movement. I don't ever remember an FBI briefing like this. I don't remember a DOJ briefing. I remember Barr schlepping out there, and doing some of Barrisms, right? But that I don't remember this. And I agree, you got to drop the hammer on this. You can't tolerate it. It should not be tolerated. But why this? And you got the whole thing. The FBI went around and warned people about it. And then why weren't you around last week? Where were the U.S. Marshals? Where is the National Guard that tried to get here? Where was the FBI? Why did you have a couple of bike racks in the Capitol Hill Police, or a terrific group of police officers? But I think they'd be the first to admit they're not really there for crowd control. So Jack Posobiec, you're a specialist in this area, and you've really been drilling down on this. Tell me what went on today, and how does this compare to when we had American cities burned down and tons of people killed?
Well, Steve, I certainly commend the FBI on their newfound desire to go after domestic terrorism. I myself and many others in this field have been urging, pleading, begging the FBI and the Joint Terrorism Task Forces to go after domestic terrorist groups, anti-government groups, these extremists, for almost 4 years now. So he says the FBI has a long memory. Well, I'd remind him that in the coordinated anarchist anti-government attack on the Capitol in 2017 that took place, known as Disrupt J20, all charges were dropped against the rioters that rioted to prevent the peaceful transfer of power from 2016 to 2017 when that took place almost 4 years ago. We had a Portland federal courthouse that was sieged for 2 months straight throughout this past summer. Where are the arrests from that? We had a 1-month insurrection in Seattle. Chaz, 2 black teenagers died, a homeless woman was murdered, a deaf woman was sexually assaulted in the tent city. Have we seen any arrests? Have we seen any of the leaders? This guy Raz, who was handing out weapons there, what's going on with him? Meanwhile, you have this other group, an anti-government group. I wouldn't call them Antifa, but they are anti-government extremists. They're known as the Boogaloo Movement. This is a group that has killed police officers, including federal officers. They attempted to join with Hamas at one point. They're pro-BLM. They are not people who support President Trump. And we're starting to see now some indications that these individuals may have been involved in the events of January 6th, as well as potential these calls for other events to take place, armed protests. They're talking about armed marches in 50 state capitals, right? These are the groups that are doing this. And so FBI, thanks, but we really wish you had gotten on the job a little bit before, because we were urging you to put a stop to this stuff long before it ever got to this point.
Look, they're saying 160 and they got 40,000 tips and they're putting out an APB. They want everybody to give them tips, which is good. That's the way you should do this. But it's like the first time this has happened, and the country's been on fire since the spring, right? I mean, it's pretty shocking. I'm glad they finally did this. We wanted them to do this with Antifa back in, and particularly here in Washington, D.C. I mean, Washington, D.C., you couldn't walk around. It was like total anarchy for 3 weeks in June, right? For 3 weeks in June, it was complete, total anarchy.
That's right.
Things running around at night, gangs running around at night.
Every three-letter agency the federal government was spun up back in June. You had businesses that were boarded up completely. You had National Guard in the streets. Yet the problem was that for all that law enforcement that we saw on the streets, we saw very little in the way of investigations and very little in the way of prosecutions of the people who did this. There's one person, I believe, that was charged for attacking, or at least being the ringleader of the people that were attacking the statues. Remember, we were told 10 years executive order from President Trump. He likes to bring that up a lot. Why haven't there been more prosecutions of the people that were going after these federal statues? And again, those are just as much federal facilities as the Capitol building, right? That's, of course, a federal facility. We want even justice across the board. That's how the system is supposed to work. Somebody broke the law, they committed a felony, go after them for that. Please, FBI, we've been asking you to do this for 4 years.
You know, this is the thing, at least the first batch, I just saw this on, I think it was The Hill last night, or one of the sites. You click to it and they had like the first 10 guys arrested. And it's the guy with the horns. It's all these kind of marginal, and it looks like people are maybe not that stable. Right, I don't want to make criticism of them, but people really, it's not that stable and are attracted to certain things. So it's not like hardcore anarchists or hardcore revolutionaries. I saw the charges were inappropriate entry of a federal building or things like that, and I'm sure they get to maybe the more violent people later.
Well, remember, Steve, the people that they're able to go after quickly are the ones who went into that Capitol building without masks. They weren't people that were planning this beforehand. They were people who got caught up in the moment and then on their own accord chose to go across that line to break the law, and now they're going to pay the price for that. But they weren't wearing masks. They weren't taking steps to conceal themselves the same way that we see some of these more hardened groups do. Some of the tactics that we have now seen employed that are going to be much harder to crack because they took those steps to conceal themselves, the people that were cutting wire, the people that were cutting down those fences, that were opening up the barricades, those people that in the early stages facilitated and instigated what was going on there at the Capitol, those are going to be the ones that are much harder for federal law enforcement to find. And I would encourage them to find every single last one of them so we can finally put to rest what happened on Jan 6.
Look, the purpose of what they're doing today in the 25th Amendment, and I think that's going to start at 6 o'clock right at the end of the show, and I'm sure Real America's Voice and John Fredericks, all of our other distribution partners, will be keeping you up to speed on that because that kicks off tonight. And then we got impeachment Wednesday and Thursday. Do you think part of this is to send a chill? Because they want to destroy President Trump. There's no doubt about that. It makes him so toxic nobody can get near him. He's like the cobalt at Chernobyl. But is part of this also to put a chill on the Trump thing? Like, hey, if you go to a Trump rally, you're going to be a domestic terrorist. And you're going to be on a no-fly list. Or if your picture's taken at a Trump rally, you're going to be fired at work, or you're going to be ostracized. Is part of the messaging they're getting underneath this is that anything associated with Trump, in other words, you're part of the million people that were there, but only 1,000 or right now 162 were the ones that were troublemakers, and probably obviously more, right? But the other million are going to be held accountable for the 250 or 300, right? That caused the problems. That if you go to a rally in Florida, your picture's taken, you're going to be fired the next day. Is that what they're trying to get to?
That is what they're trying to get to. They're subliminally sending a message that if you walk down a street wearing a red hat, then you're committing a crime. That is not a crime, and you cannot hold the 99% of peaceful marchers and demonstrators there responsible for the actions of the 1% that did cross the line. This is a 99% versus 1% situation. It is the 1% that were doing that. And I would send this message to Republican elected officials across the entire country, as well as these so-called 2024 contenders. Where are you standing up for the people of this movement, standing up for the people of your own party that are being canceled and silenced right now, losing their jobs?
Jack, just hang on for one second. I want to bring you back after the break. Jack Posobiec will return in just a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, breaking news right now. Diplomatic world brace for bombshell declassified revelations from ongoing U.S. government concerning origin of the COVID-19. Trump administration poised for Beijing broadside over the Wuhan lab. That is the Sun in the United Kingdom. That's their morning edition, already coming out overnight. I think there's other declassified. It's going to be also bombshells. And why did we stop the UN ambassador from going to Taiwan? Got to get to all that. Mike Pompeo throwing down thunderbolts today about China. But one thing, they stopped the ambassador from going to Taiwan, our ambassador to the UN. Okay, we got John Fredericks coming. I got to get to Posobiec. Posobiec, New York Times is reporting Mitch McConnell, and we don't know if this is accurate. McConnell's office, I don't think, has responded. Mitch McConnell saying that he believes that there are charges for impeachment, relevant charges for impeachment of the president, and quote unquote, he's glad of what the House is doing. That's not verified. We don't know if that's true or not, but the Times, the paper of record, is reporting that. This goes to my argument that the President of the United States, for the country, for the Constitution, for our republic, for the American people, for the Trump movement, for the Republican Party, and last but not least for himself and his legacy, needs to have a robust defense in this impeachment, whatever she's going to do. If Nancy Pelosi has the rules in this 2 hours, President Trump has to bring what we call the receipts about the stealing of the election, and he has to bring the evidence of Antifa or anything else related to this, his instigating a violent insurrection. What say you, Mr. Posobiec?
Of Donald Trump since all the way back in 2015. He wants to go back to the old way of doing things with the uniparty establishment. This is the guy, by the way, who lost the Republican majority in the U.S. Senate when he refused to help the voters of Georgia when they were in an upcoming runoff election, right? 1 week away, he blocked a stimulus bill, relief bill payments to those voters in Georgia. And both the Trafalgar Group and Richard Barris came out and said that that was the single issue for swing voters that broke in the Georgia election. It was as popular as sweet tea down there. And Mitch McConnell broke it, thinking that this strategic calculus would be how to win the U.S. Senate and get rid of Donald Trump. This has been what he wanted, and now he's trying to do everything he can to rewrite the history of the last 5 years.
Jack, if there's not a robust defense tomorrow of the president, how do you think that plays out in the future? Not for the president, but for the Trump movement, those 75 million people that voted for President Trump And the polling's either 72% of them up to 90% of them believe that this election was either illegal, illegitimate, or stolen. If there's not a robust defense tomorrow in a venue that could potentially provide it, or there's not some real fight to actually put forward the president's case, how do you think that impacts the movement going forward?
Steve, nature abhors a vacuum. And in the information space, or the information environment, as we would refer to it in the intelligence community, we know that that is going to be filled one way or the other. So it's all about narrative. Is the establishment going to be able to set their narrative, or will this movement, the MAGA movement, the America First movement, driven, of course, at the top by Donald J. Trump, will they have a narrative that combats the establishment narrative, or will their story be the one that is able to prevail? That is why in the information space, you cannot go a week without setting any narrative. You need to be responding. You need to have your communications plan in place. Jason Miller, of course, understands this. And you need to be going out there toe to toe, regardless of what they say, because you need to be filling that vacuum, or it will be filled by your opponents.
Okay, Jack, how do people get to you during the day? Jack Posobiec of One American News Network. How do people follow you during the day, sir?
Sure, you can follow me on there, Parler, whenever it comes back up, and then also Twitter at Jack Posobiec, JCKPOSOBIEC.
Okay, thank you, brother. Fantastic job. I want to turn now to John Fredericks. John, you've had a chance to see the New York Times report about Mitch McConnell. I know there's a big article you're part of. I think the Washington Times had it, really interesting article about the grassroots versus the establishment. But I don't want to get into that today. What I want to talk about is what's happening tonight, where they're trying to tell Pence, if you don't, if the president doesn't resign by like noon tomorrow, we're going to impeach you. If you don't effectuate the 25th Amendment, we're going to impeach you. Right, and we're going to have this thing about inciting a violent insurrection against the United States government, which was driven by your baseless and false claims about not just election irregularities. I'm talking about voter fraud, ballot fraud, and election fraud. And you've seen Mitch McConnell come out tonight, and look, McConnell's office has not verified this, but coming out and saying that it is reported that he said that there are justified charges for an impeachment, and he's glad the House is doing it. What say you, Mr. John Frederick?
Do not despise. Tonight is really a great night for us, and let me tell you why. Number one, out of the ashes shall rise the phoenix. This McConnell report in the New York Times is the best thing that has ever happened to Donald Trump. Because right now they'll all get exposed. I want the impeachment to go on because I want to see the votes. Because we have speed and we have numbers. The Republican Party exists right now in name only. The Pina Colada Republicans that went to Amelia Island Sunday to Thursday, drank margaritas through swizzle sticks, right while Rome burned, right, instead of knocking on doors in Georgia, they had their whole staff down there. There's no Republican Party. The establishment is in name only. The establishment is a function of the money they get from Wall Street, your old firm Goldman Sachs, and the other big money people. That's all they are. We have the numbers. We have 40, 50 million people who are going to be voting in primaries. We're more woke, more awakened now than ever. And now when Mitch McConnell comes out and shows his true colors, he doesn't care about us. He never believed in this. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about anything. He cares about himself and his power. And he lost his power. He ran that campaign. Karl Rove ran that campaign in Georgia. We told them night after night after night what they had to do. They wouldn't do it. And now Mitch McConnell wants to turn around and shift blame to Trump on that. That's a feckless loser. I'm glad he did this. I want the impeachment to go on. I want a defense, and I want them exposed.
To your point, this morning in the show, Liz Cheney had come out and said she wanted to be a vote of conscience, and we said that's good. We don't want people hiding. We want you to vote your conscience. So Phil Mattingly just reports the breaking news: House GOP number 3, Liz Cheney will vote to impeach the president of the United States. I want that to sink in for a second. The number 3 party leadership, right back in McCarthy and Scalise, Liz Cheney, of the infamous Cheney family that's brought so much wonder to the United States and to the military and to the Middle East. She is going to vote. Make sure you fully embrace this. She's going to vote to not just impeach the President of the United States. She's going to vote to impeach the President of the United States on the charge and correct me if I'm wrong, of violently instigating a violent insurrection against the United States government. This is why, and look, I think the president's team of the White House are great guys, men and women, right? And I understand they're under terrible, unbelievable circumstances. The guys in the House, the Jim Jordans, the Meadows is not there anymore. He was a sidekick they were wingmen. You got Gates, you got others. We need a robust defense because this is going to live in history. We just can't have the up or down vote. This is going to live in history. They're going after the president for instigating violent insurrection against the government of the United States. This has never been done in history. The closest this has ever been done is the trial of Aaron Burr, a former vice president of the United States that came out of the catastrophic election of 1800. These all have consequences. Hamilton eventually died in a duel, and Burr was tried for treason in Richmond by Thomas Jefferson. No elected, and he was out of office then. The president of the United States, make sure everybody on this show globally understands what the charge is. The charge is he instigated a violent insurrection against the government of the United States. That's going to live for all time. And this is why it must be a robust defense. Guys are sitting there going, oh, no, let's get it up and get the vote. No. The president's case must be put forward. The case on why that is nonsense. He did not instigate anything. Certainly never. A patriot like Donald Trump, who loves his country, would never instigate any insurrection, much less a violent one. And certainly, his fight to claim his victory on the 3rd was both constitutional, fair, legal, and the appropriate thing he had to do to defend the Constitution, not about him, not about his followers, not about his voters, but about us as a constitutional republic. What say you, Mr. John Frederick?
Well, first of all, and so there was no incitement of any insurrection, so that is false. But let's get to Lynn Cheney, and let's get to her father, Dick Cheney. These are the people that got us involved in countless wars with no evidence that we're still in today. These are the people that got us involved into Iraq. This is the warmonger family of all time. They hate Trump. They hate our movement. They want us to go away. And this is simply an opportunity for them to sweep their failed history under the table and to blame someone else. Donald J. Trump at that speech did nothing of the sort. He needs to be the defendant. But Steve, we have to go through this. This is a necessary event in the history and the life of this movement. We have to go through this. We have to defend the president on the truth because he didn't do that. Certain things he should have done better, like acting faster, no question about it. But he certainly didn't. And this is not anywhere an impeachable offense. But this is their attempt. This is the Republican Party's attempt. They know they're dying. They know that we don't care about them. They know that they can't get elected to anything without us. So all they can do is try to destroy the movement and go back to their globalist world of endless wars, open borders, doing deals with China, depressing wages, so their friends on Goldman Sachs can get a bigger bonus at the end of the quarter. We've all been through this. So let them say what they want, but this is a necessary pain that we have to go through. We have to go through it. They're all going to be exposed. Eventually, they all come up for re-election. Here's what we control. This is why there is no need for despair. We control all the numbers within every Republican primary in America. Every single one. If we decide to get new leaders and primary these people, we're going to have a 90% success rate. Doesn't matter how much money they spend. Look at all the money they spent in Georgia. Did that matter? No. Our people didn't show up, and we said they weren't going to show up for 10 weeks and told them over and over and over. But it didn't matter. Mitch McConnell ran that campaign. So don't despair. We're going to go through this. He's going to be exonerated, and we have the numbers in every single primary, and the deplorables are going to take over the party by electing new leaders. Again, the movement has eclipsed its current leadership. You saw McCarthy the other day. I don't know if what he said was accurate or not, but he bailed. You saw McConnell today. He bailed. You saw his wife bailed. They all bailed.
John,
so they're all going to be up eventually for re-election.
Okay, we got to bounce. John Fredericks.
In a primary.
6 to 10 before the War Room. John, thank you very much, our co-production partner. Look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Tomorrow's the impeachment day. Okay, we're going to change it up just a tad. It's been a little hot. Kind of a hot show tonight. We're going to change it up a little bit. Next, we're going to bring in Drew Mason. We're going to talk about prayer. And we're talking about fasting and the combination of prayer and fasting next in the War Room.
We're taking down the CCP. Spread the word all through Hong Kong. We will fight till they're all gone. We rejoice when there's no more. Let's take down the CCP.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, there's 20 things we should get to tonight. The situation with the ambassador going to Taiwan, the Wuhan, the intelligence we're going to drop on the CCP virus on Wuhan, the president's great speech at the border wall, right? And by the way, we got all kind of people just walking through our shot right there. Welcome to the War Room. We just got them wandering in here. Okay, for our podcast audience, we just had somebody wander into our camera shot. It's an interesting fan base here. Okay, but tonight and every night and every day, we're going to try to have segments that talk about how we pull things together and how we go forward to play the long game. And part of that is I want to bring on Drew Mason from St. Joseph's. He's the founder of St. Joseph Partners, and discuss his concept that they've been doing, building a religious renaissance around the concept of prayer and fasting. Drew Mason, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Steve, for allowing me to share this incredible news of hope with your listeners, as it's so encouraging, especially in light of how upset so many people have been. Scripture's lesson is timeless, and two lessons that are shining out for Americans today are Nineveh and the story of Esther. Nineveh had many parallels to America, people that had been very successful, but God sent out the word he was going to destroy it because of its sins. But when Nineveh's leader and its people repented and fasted, the citizens' effort touched God's heart, and instead of destroying it, the nation prospered for another 100 years because of the little fasting done by their citizens. And then there was the orphan girl Esther, who realized that a plan was afoot to kill every Jew from Asia to Africa on the 13th of the month. Esther asked the believers to join her in fasting for 3 days without any food and anything to drink. After the third day, the Lord revealed plans of wisdom to the believers who had fasted, and the wicked plans that had deceived so many were revealed. Believers were spared, and they returned to prosperity. There are numerous other stories as well, Steve, about how citizens were rescued through fasting and civilizations restored. But most pastors today don't know about the requirements they're under from Scripture to fast or the power of fasting, because evil executed a pretty extraordinary coup in the 1960s, rewriting approximately 40% of the Bibles used in Protestant churches today and almost 100% of the Bibles used by Catholic believers. I'll just leave you two verses, and listeners can look this up for themselves, because you said, Steve, yesterday, it's almost impossible that we could have been ambushed so completely by church leadership. Look up Mark chapter 9, verse 29. What's happening there is Jesus has sent out the apostles. They're on fire. They're doing all kinds of miracles. And then it seems all 12 of them encountered one person possessed by evil. And the one person took down the 12 apostles, 1 on 12, took down the 12 people that Christ handpicked, hand-trained. They got Christ. He saved the day. But when they had him all alone, they said, Lord, why couldn't we have victory over evil here? And he said, because this is when evil is present, it requires prayer and fasting. For centuries, that was the translation. Catholics saw it in Dewey Reams, Protestants in King James Version, but then in the 1960s, a couple of Protestants started this movement to rewrite the Bible. And mysteriously, that verse was changed, so that now, Mark 9:29, if you look at the NIV or the ESV, only says because this can only come out by prayer. It's omitted fasting and completely changed and destroyed the entire teaching as to how to defeat evil. Catholics will see the same thing. Look at the Dewey Reams version pre-Vatican II and compare that to most Bibles, and they'll see it has been completely changed.
Okay.
The parallel story is even more incredible.
Hold on.
Matthew.
Hang on. Just give me the, we're running out of time. Just give me the Matthew verse so people can check. What's the Matthew verse in Matthew?
Matthew, verse 17, verse 21, that has been entirely omited.
Okay, people,
from the
hang
Bible,
on, hang on,
parallel.
hang on. People can go check that for themselves. You can go see the original KJV, King James Bible, or the Dewey Reams, the traditional Catholic Bible, in the new translations, and see that's missing. We got about 3 minutes. I need you to tell the power of prayer and fasting, and then tell people about the 2 times a week fasting and how they do it. And you got all of 3 minutes to do that.
Evil tells you you're powerless. There's nothing you can do. You're unworthy and makes you feel alone and despondent. God's scripture here about fasting is telling us that you can't comprehend how powerful just your impact can be on shaping history. You may be in a hospital bed somewhere, an elderly facility. You could be in jail hearing this. These are God's sourcing grounds for the greatest miracles. The uneducated, the prostitutes, the orphans, even a mass murderer like St. Paul. That's who he was until God called him. And the power we have by fasting is the great leveler of the playing field. Scripture tells us if one of us in fasting and prayer can chase 100, 2 can chase 1,000. So we have this exponential ability to bring blessings from heaven. So another time we could tell you more details, but Wednesdays and Fridays are 2 days a week. When first century Christians fasted, they did it on bread and water. It was shockingly easy how to do it. And what you'll see is that again and again, people today are experiencing wonderful blessings when they do this. Steve put up a great video showing the American boys, age 20, storming Normandy. It was a bloodbath. They saw their friends getting massacred, and they were about to be massacred, but they mustered up the courage to step forward because they loved this man so much.
Drew, real quickly, how do people get to your website? Give them the website so they get more details on how actually you do the fast. I want to make sure people understand your concept of fasting. It's Wednesdays and Fridays like first century Christians. Give the website that you go to.
stjosephpartners.com, St. Joseph. You'll see a menu bar. On the left side is our business tabs, gold, silver. More to the right, you'll see Fast for USA, and it's a repository of tremendous amounts of information on fasting.
Okay.
Steve, can we say a quick prayer with
Drew, I would love to, but we're hard out of time, so I gotta bounce. But we're going to have you back. What I want to do is have you back on Friday and talk about the continuation of fasting, and then we'll do it. That's Drew Mason from St. Joseph Partners. Make sure you go to his website. Go to his website now, check out, you click on there, St. Joseph Partners, and you will find out about fasting Wednesdays and Fridays like the first century Christians. In this concept of prayer and fasting, make sure you check out those verses in the Bible to see what it was in the old days and what it was kind of post-Vatican II. They took out the fasting. Okay, we need all the help and all the assistance we can get, but you got to use your human agency. Okay, we're going to be back at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Tomorrow is impeachment day. It's going to be a big one, and it's going to be gnarly. So see you at 10 o'clock tomorrow on The War Room.